Students, help us to have the wisdom and give us your guidance so that we do the best thing for our students, for the district, and for our community. We ask all these things in thy name. Amen. Amen.
Final budget amendments for 17-18. Daryl, I have a feeling you're going to be the man of the hour.
It won't last that long. Good evening, board. It's a pleasure to serve as your CFO and to present to you a bunch of numbers tonight for your approval. I believe you should be very honored and proud to serve as a board member of a district like Gatesville ISD. I've been here, this is my 12th year starting, and it's been a great district to work for, a lot of wonderful people in the community. And it's a pleasure to be on Eric Penrod's administrative team and to serve this community. So I know Gatesville ISD is important to each one of you for a variety of reasons. And I'm not going to ask you to say anything out loud, but if you just maybe answer the question for yourself, what really does make Gatesville ISD special to you as you think about that? There's a lot of programs, there's a lot of people, staff, there's students, and in many ways they're probably crossing your lives. And those things make you very, very happy, and you're proud of those items here at Gatesville ISD. So as we look at numbers, I want you to think about what's important to you at Gatesville ISD, because every facet of Gatesville ISD is impacted by these numbers. When we talk about approving a budget in support of next fiscal year's operations of the school district, we're talking about everything, from activity accounts to athletics to academics, you name it. All the different departments that it takes to run a school district. So I kind of wanted to get that there up front to make sure that we put in perspective that this is not just about numbers, but this is about people and about students and about what's best for this community. And I know you take this very diligently and approving these kind of numbers, knowing that these are indeed going to support what's very best for the school district. So the first item, as Joe mentioned, is the final budget amendments for 2017-2018. They're on page 6. This is the last time that we'll present to you budget amendments for the fiscal year 2017-2018. And typically, right up to the end, I'm making some few adjustments just to make sure that in case something comes up, an expenditure comes up, and it's not going to be paid until October, but it's going to have to be backdated until August, that we have enough funds in all the function codes to meet them. Because on the audit, when the audit's finally released, probably at the December board meeting, all the functions have to be in line. I can't have any overexpended function codes, whether it's 23, whether it's 11, or whether it's 13. So this is like our final shot to make sure that we're going to have enough funds in the budget to cover all the function codes. And so a little bit of this is a little bit of fudge, especially that last item there at the bottom of the page, because I take all the different functions and I try to pad it a little bit just in case, because there's always something that might come up that we weren't anticipating. So if you have any questions about any of these amendments on page 6, I'll be glad to answer them. Other than that, we're presenting these to you as the final budget amendments for 17-18 for your approval.
Any questions, guys?
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I have a question, and I'll start at the bottom.
Okay.
We had $74,000 that was taken out of the instruction fund, or instruction function code 11.
Mm-hmm.
Is that just over budgeted, or where did that money come from? Did we lose positions? Did we approve money for positions that didn't get hired? Or I'm not real familiar with all this budget stuff.
Yeah, well, there's a variety of things that you put in the budget, including like substitutes, extra duty pay, and sometimes there are a few positions that are what we consider open positions. And when it gets right down to it, at the end of the year, we typically will have a balance left over in function 11. That's usually the biggest one that has monies left over. This also includes all of the supplies, anything that would have been coded to function 11, education, instruction. And so that's, again, this is very typical for, this is where I take any excess out and maybe put a little bit into some of the other functions just to make sure that we got them covered. 74,000 is a pretty reasonable number.
It's what?
It's a pretty reasonable number. That's not that big of a
Well,
number.
it is, but the way I look at it, that's a couple of substitute, or a couple of teachers' aides that we could have paid all year long and had some help where we really need help, where our teachers need help.
Right.
And, yeah.
But it's spread among a lot of different codes. Yeah.
Yes, sir. I see that. I
But
just,
I mean, I understand.
that's just,
Your point's well made.
that's my question, one of the questions. Increased budget for fiscal year 18 on high school renovations for 100,000. What, we spent 100,000 on it already?
No, I think you'll answer that, but it's basically
Yeah, this is the architect.
architects.
They anticipated billing us $80,000 in
this year?
September for services rendered in the summer.
Okay.
I just got them to email me an estimate, and
Okay.
so they estimated 80, so I just put 100 just to make sure I had it covered.
Okay.
But they won't invoice until later.
They're gonna invoice the next month
We'll
for
backdate that.
services rendered throughout the summer,
Okay.
since they've been starting on the project.
Just-
That's
just-
what that is.
Looks like a lot of money to me. I mean, I just curious as to where it was going.
Mhm.
The Fund 182, is that the playoff fund? What is that?
The Fund 182 is our playoff fund. It's just 35,000.
Oh, and then there's
One
60,000
year,
right under it.
35, 60 and 35.
Yes, sir.
Fund 182 is the playoff fund. And I think we originally budgeted 60. We brought it down to 50 at one point because athletics needed some jerseys. But we actually wound up spending 85. So there was a lot of activity going on, especially in the Cade area, with a lot of our classes going on to, you know, competing in advanced stages, even like the welding team going all the way to nationals. It was hard to predict how much that's going to be, but this year it got hit pretty hard. The 60,000 is actually an error on my part. So I discovered this when I was going through here making these final adjustments, and the expense in Fund 182 last year was somehow got coded to function 23 instead of 36. Never noticed it the whole year, but I corrected that. So that's what that 60 is.
The auditors did not catch that?
No, it's a budget.
Okay, so.
It was a budget, yeah. It's strictly budget, not the expenditure part, it's just the budget part. Got coded to the wrong function.
I wonder if you're taking it out of 23 up here, and then the next line below, you're putting money back into 23. I just, like I said, I don't understand how this works exactly, so that's why I have so many questions, and I apologize. But
Well, when I found the mistake, I went ahead and corrected it, and then put that 60,000 budget in function 36 where it belonged, took it out of 23. This other thing up here, maybe further up, with like $18, that's something that the office at junior high was doing. So we decreased the principal's office and increased library. Everything kind of stands alone, each transaction.
well, the 2-digit and 3-digit numbers don't get my attention near as much as the
The big
5-digit
ones.
number.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Even though that's not a lot of money in the vast picture of what we're talking
Oh, yeah,
about,
absolutely.
it's a lot of money to me.
Yes. And I didn't mean it in a derogatory manner at all. But good point's well taken. Any other questions?
Tiny.
Tiny?
BO812, BO8012, it's only $64, but increased 11, function 11 from 13. Student travel at the junior high, what would that have been?
It probably was the, maybe a science field trip, I think.
Oh, okay, I just wondered why it
Yeah,
showed up.
field trips go to 11.
Just wondered why it showed up now was my only question.
I think it's a science field trip was at the very end of May.
Okay,
So, you know, by time it goes through all
perhaps
processes,
not,
it's more
yes,
likely.
thank you.
And so, you know, again, sometimes with the credit cards, it's like 2 to 3 months lag time between
Yeah.
the time they actually execute the transaction by the time it hits the books. Same thing with travel reports, transportation reports, use of our school
Right.
buses.
Yes.
We just, posted last month's, here a few days ago.
Thanks.
Anything else?
Anybody else? Okay,
Okay.
I guess we got a vote on
Motion.
this, huh? Do we have a motion to accept the 17-18 budget amendments, the final budget amendments?
So moved.
Second? Any other discussion? All in favor, raise your hand. Any opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
District operating budget amendments.
Okay, so this is page 5 and 7. So now that you've approved the final budget amendments for 17-18, these budget amendments are now incorporated into this page here, showing you the original budget for 17-18 and showing you the final amended budget for 17-18 after this and all the other months' budget amendments that you've approved. And the far right column is basically a net of all the budget amendments that have been approved throughout the year. And they all kind of conglomerate back into one number. I can try to identify some of the big numbers if you want. I just don't know how much detail you want me to get into. I can wait when you have questions, or I can go through some of these big numbers on the right and kind of remind us how those numbers came about.
I'd like to look at all of them.
Is that okay?
You look at all of them? And I told Eric earlier, I said, the way we went through the budget deal the other day,
Mm-hmm.
to me, that was a budget presentation. It wasn't actually a workshop. We didn't really have any say-so about it. And before, when I was on the board, we spent hours working on the budget, line by line.
Mm-hmm.
Personally, I like that a whole lot better. I mean, if somebody asks me a question, I want to be able to answer them. I don't want to, gosh, I don't know, I'll have to find out. So, I mean, this is stuff that really interests me, and
Sure.
Well, I think we can do that. I mean, that's why we're given the budget before we come to the last meeting. Any questions you have, if it takes us 5 hours to go through it at that meeting, that's what that meeting's for, is to do that. So
Sometimes I'm
it's
told
not like we
I'm
don't have an
overwhelmed with
opportunity. We just have to take the opportunity.
Well,
You know what I'm saying?
I do, but I mean, I would like to be present when it's put together, so you know what it is. I mean, you give me a chart and I have trouble reading it or coming up with, come up with questions, but then to throw all that at us in 30, 45 minutes, and it's too fast. We don't have enough time to,
Yeah.
for it to, my head's too thick, I guess. It has to soak in. I don't know, but.
Of course, the
Anyway,
budget is
that's-
built over a number of months, and it involves a substantial number of employees and staff members in the building of that budget. So it's not something that we slap together at the last
Understand
minute. And, many, many, many hours are spent building that budget. So I don't know, how detailed you're wanting to go, or what level, back into the March area when they're.
Well, I want to sit down and
You know
spend
what I'm
enough time
saying?
on it that I understand it.
Yeah.
And away from here, I don't really have time to do that. I mean, my day is
Mhm.
completely full every day.
Okay.
But if I,
Well, yeah, the budget workshop was intended for that. If you wanted me to drill down some of those numbers, I would have been happy to.
yeah, but we only,
But I would totally
we're only allotted less than
recognize-
an hour. It started at 5:30 and we had a regular board meeting at 6:30.
Mhm.
I mean, to me, that's just not enough time. That was a budget presentation.
Yeah.
It wasn't actually a workshop, in my opinion.
Okay.
So that's my 2 cents and I'm through.
Okay, so what is the pleasure of the board here on these numbers?
I think Rob wants to go line by line, so.
Okay.
Well, okay, for instance, 233,000, that's on line 34, that's for the new buses, correct? The Transportation?
2 new buses.
Yes.
Yeah, I've got it,
Okay.
I've got it written out here on
I
the
figured that one.
side of my sheet. That big number would be the 2 buses. I kind of identified the big numbers. For instance, like on function 21, the 103,000, we discussed that at the workshop, where that was the changing of director of CAPE programs.
Right.
Moving it from a 13 to a 21, so you see 13 went down, 21 went up. School leadership went down 46, 23, 60,000 of that, is that correction I made? That brought this down? That was on that budget amendment?
Right.
The first one there on instruction, 48 positive, we had probably about 60,000, roughly 60,000 of that was in previously unbudgeted CAPE expenditures for a lot of different CAPE things that we did. And about 20,000 for a piano for the choir. It was in those numbers right there, that 48,000. Food services, the next big number is on section 35. That went down primarily because of the participation was down. So we didn't have the expense. We also didn't have the income, but we didn't have the expense either.
Right.
The next item, extracurricular, 108. I know 35,000 of that was the over expenditure on the A182 fund that we talked about, with so many programs going into the playoffs. We had a $10,000 item there for the football jerseys. And I think here we just had an increase overall in all of the activities, primarily at the high school. From all the athletics, everything. That includes the UIL is included in that number. So that's that number. General admin, 29. I think probably half of that's going to be overtime. Overtime, a lot of our workers here at the admin office, we had a significant amount of overtime this past year. The facilities went down to 170 because we moved it from 51 to 81. So some of the budget in 51 got moved to function 81, so that's the reason for the 465 increase. 81 means capital acquisitions, and that's the big number. In that number, we had about 110,000 of that 465 was for the CAPE programs. Junior high at this point was around 115,000. The athletic department, we spent about 40,000. 25,000 was on the speakers at the stadium. And I think 18,000 was for a new gym scoreboard that was actually paid for by the commissions off the Dr. Pepper contract. But the Dr. Pepper contract came in with income and then went out as an expense. So this shows the expense here on 81. Elementary, about 20,000 for playground. And let's see, what else? I think that's the big numbers. Can you think of anything else, Mr. Tom? Okay. Those are kind of the big numbers that make up the 465. So those are the substantial increases. Then again, these are all a conglomeration of all the budget amendments that we've been submitting to you that year. And I just kind of summarized, you know, the big ticket items.
And can you tell me one more time, because I didn't hear what you said.
Which
On
one?
the function 81, there was no original amount budgeted for what reason?
We don't budget for that. Typically, we have the $2 million that the board committed for fixed asset acquisitions and capital acquisitions out of fund balance, which
Okay.
was something we did last year.
Okay, so it's
And
not
then
it's not
that's what
budgeted.
that $2 million goes for.
And there's another deal in there about that tonight.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
So
Gotcha.
each year we typically
Okay.
about $2 million, and as we spend it, it's going to go against 81. So we didn't actually budget it, but we just committed it out of fund balance. Does that make sense?
And that function is not really limited in what you can spend it on. It's just available
Function 81
money.
is going to be capital outlay.
So anything over $5,000.
It's going to be any thing like a
Buildings
fixed
and
asset
grounds.
that's $5,000 or more, or building, major renovations. Yeah, that's what that's going to be.
Okay.
All right, so do we have a motion on approving the budget?
Do we have a motion?
Unless you have some more questions.
Cheyenne, was that a motion?
It was a motion.
That was a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Any other questions or comments?
I have a comment.
Yeah.
Because of the fact that this budget is gonna put more of a tax burden on the taxpayers in consideration of what the city and the county have already done, I'm not gonna be able to support it.
Support.
I know, we didn't go up in our tax rate, but it's a shell game that the property values are raised, so like it's, I mean, unless there's a misprint in the paper where it said $100,000 home, the taxes are gonna be $500 more, is that correct? 50? 50 more?
That's right.
50
I mean,
per thousand.
I think
For
the
100,000.
tax increases between the city and the county are gonna be outstanding this year, and it's really gonna put a burden on the taxpayers, and I just,
So what you think is we ought to lower the tax rate?
I think we should set the tax rate where it would generate the exact same number of dollars it did last year. And I was thinking that there was a term for that, and I have looked for it, and I've looked for it,
It's
and looked for
TRE,
it.
it's tax ratification.
What is it?
Tax ratification, anytime you adjust the tax,
Okay.
it's a tax ratification, goes to election even if it's lower.
But I don't, I'm just explaining myself before I vote, so
But this
don't
is
know what's
for-
going on.
This is for this year's, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, this is 17, 18.
This is not.
Oh, I'm sorry, this, didn't we already?
No, we just voted for the
17,
Transfers.
18.
Yeah, this is just.
This
the
past year's
amendments, the
Yes,
budget
right.
amendments. This is the amended final total of the budget.
I got you.
It's been
Okay,
approved
I'm-
all
I'm
year.
thinking we're.
We had to approve
already
the
here.
amendments
Gotcha.
first.
Okay, I got
and then
you.
we have to approve this.
Okay. See, I don't know how this budget stuff works.
Okay, any other questions about the 17, 18 amended budget that we're approving? Okay, all in favor? Any opposed? Okay. Notice of public meeting to discuss budget and proposed tax rate.
So this is opening up a public discussion of the district's proposed 18-19 budget and tax levy rates. So we're going to be presenting this in open session, subject to public discussion. The proposed budget as well as the tax levy rates for next school year.
Read this now.
He has already.
No.
So you let me know when we're ready to go to the next item.
Good.
We're just opening up this
Right.
session.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
All right, so the first thing on here would be page 10. We're asking to approve the final operating budget for 18 and 19 that's presented by management. And that budget was presented at the budget workshop and starts on page 11. The summary is on page 12. And this page 12 is what will be posted on our website following your approval. And then the rest of the pages are detail taken from our Texas Management Software program. And I've also included the spreadsheets that we use, Excel spreadsheets, in compiling the budget. You've already seen all these numbers, but these are the final numbers, and I always want to again present them to you at this open session. So there have been no changes since the budget workshop.
Yeah. So this is the proposed budget for the 18-19 fiscal year. So do we have a motion to, is that what we need to do? A motion to accept the budget?
And just
The
discussion.
18-19?
Yeah, I guess you'll open up for discussion.
Yeah. So is there any discussion about it's basically the same, I mean, it's exactly the same as what we discussed in our last meeting.
Can you scroll down to the next page here, please?
Excuse me.
So this is the summary of the budget that will be posted on the website. This kind of gives you the major categories of revenues. The 5,700 is local sources. Most of that's going to be local taxes. State program revenues coming from our allocation from the state of Texas. Federal program revenues are going to be federal grants. Grants are in a different fund. Federal program revenues will be primarily the food service program. Interfund transfers and sales of surplus property. This includes the transfers that will be made from the general fund over to the Fund 240, which is the Child Nutrition Fund. We were anticipating about $100,000 loss in that fund next year. And so that's in that interfund transfer. Also in that number would be transfers for the athletics, where we subsidize athletics. And then we have function codes on the appropriations. The biggest, of course, is the instruction code. This is your teachers and all your teachers' aides. There's salaries, benefits, supplies, software, equipment, everything. For instruction, which is about 50% of your budget. We'll go down to 12, instruction support. It's usually called library services. 13 is our curriculum and professional development department, which is for the entire district. Instructional leadership, 21, is going to be your campus leadership, your principals, your assistant principals, and their admin team, their secretaries, and some of the aides that are non-instructional aides. Guidance counseling, these are your counselors at all the different campuses. This includes all of the testing that they do as well. Social work, last year we added a full-time social work individual, and so this number did increase for this year to 32. That's function 32. Health services, it's going to be your nurses. We have a nurse at each of the campuses. 34 is going to be transportation for students. This expense also includes all of the transportation expenses, which would be when you use transportation for extracurricular activities or taking a school vehicle to go off to a workshop. That's all. The actual cost that would be allocated to those would be in their proper functions, but the overall expense is in 34. 35 is your food service. Most of that is, we have a little bit of that in Fund 199. Most of that's in Fund 240. Extracurricular activities, 36. That's all your athletics, any of your extracurricular activities, including UIL, cheerleaders, drama, everything. General admin, it is going to be everything associated with the central office, your superintendents, assistant supes, your business office, the board is in here, our insurance policies are in here. That's a pretty good chunk. Number facilities, maintenance and operations, 51. That's in support of all the facilities of the school district. Security and monitoring, we have an arrangement with the city of Gatesville where we reimburse the salary of a full-time security person, and that's what most of that is. The rest of that would be probably security that we pay at all the different ball games. You know, that adds up. Data processing services, that's your technology department. That includes like internet services. It's going to include all the software. So there's quite a bit, you know, in that number as well. Community service is very small. This is like parent involvement activities. That's what's in that number. Debt service, that's the payments on our elementary school bond. We have 2 bonds. Other intergovernmental charges, number 99. That's going to be the cost for the assessor's office here, that assesses property. That's their fee. The tax collection, which is Justin Carruthers, their fee is built into function 41, general administration. But this one has it separated out. And then interfund transfers out, that's the 90,000 that will go toward the loss, anticipated loss of Fund 240. Now, if you scroll up a little bit more, I've indicated here below what funds are included in this budget. So this is the official school budget. And it officially includes 181, which is athletic fund, 182, which is district playoff fund, 199, that's the big one, that's the big general fund, 240, which is child nutrition, and then 599, which you call interest and sinking, and that's the servicing of our debt. And on the actual post that we've made on the website, we are now required to disclose how much we're going to budget for advertisements in the paper that are required by the state. And it's $3,100. And that's going to be just a little footnote at the bottom. That's something the last legislature added. And so it's just going to be like a footnote at the bottom of this sheet. But when you go on the website, you'll see that. Okay, any questions?
No questions or discussion? Okay, this is the proposed budget. Do we have a motion to accept the budget, proposed budget? Shane. Second. Do we have a second?
Go ahead. I'll second it.
Any other discussion on the budget? I would like to say that, with all due respect to Rob, I disagree with his assessment. We haven't increased the taxes in this district. I know the city has for sure, for the second year in a row, increased the tax rate. We're not doing that. The price of things goes up every year, as everybody knows. Nothing stays the same. We have to generate more revenue to do what we're doing. We can't fund teacher raises if we want to do teacher raises. If every time revenue goes up, we lower the tax rate to bring the revenue back down. We can't do the things that we need to do to make this a good district. So I think the tax rate is fine. Ever since I've been on here, it's been that rate, and I think it's been that for long before I was on the school board.
No, it changed in
I would-
2013 or 14. It was $1.11 and it went to $1.
That was for the elementary school. That was not the maintenance and operation tax rate, and that was voted on by the community to do that because they wanted the new school.
Okay.
So, I think the tax rate's fine. It's one of the lowest in our district, if not the lowest. So I think we do a great job with the budget rate on the tax revenue. I would not be for a tax increase. I'm with Rob on that. The people pay enough taxes. I agree completely with that. I'm opposed to the city raising the tax. I don't know if the county has. I don't know if they increase
Huge
it.
tax increase this year.
I'm opposed to that too. We are taxed and taxed and taxed, but that's not what the district is doing. So any suggestion that we're raising the taxes on the people, I'm going to completely disagree with, and I would be opposed to that.
Well, we're not raising the taxes.
We're not raising the tax rate.
We're not raising the tax rate. Well, when you
They're
talk about
raising
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 the
the tax
taxes,
burden, we're not raising the tax rate.
Right.
we're not
We'll
doing
see.
that though.
No.
That's
No,
not
that's
our
not
function.
No.
But they're raising the value of our homes.
That's the
Well, it's a-
appraisal district. That's
It's a
not
shell
us.
But that's not
It's-
school.
I mean, Justin knows how much he has to raise.
We're
So
not
if he has to
setting
raise the
the
value of the
valuation.
property, then that's what he has to
You're
do.
not-
Maybe, I mean, I don't know that process.
I know what you're saying.
I don't know
I
him
don't
well enough to
disagree.
Then
know.
why are you
that.
arguing?
I don't disagree with you.
I'm just
Does
saying,
it
at
not
some
make any
point,
sense?
Just,
you
well,
know,
I
you bend it, and one of these days it's gonna break. And
I
when
agree,
it
I
does-
agree. I'm
I don't
agreeing
think
with
we're
y'all's
there.
principle, but the tax rate, we're not increasing
We're
that. So
agreeing, I'm agreeing with their tax rates not increasing, but I do know that the property values have
Absolutely.
increased.
that's nothing we can, there's nothing we
Can I
can do about
finish?
that.
I would like to finish what
Go
I'm
ahead and
saying.
finish.
And so you give a teacher a raise, but they take it back with the tax increase, with the value increase. Now, if I'm paying 50,000 or not $50 per 100,000 more, there's an increase. It's just in a different, it's worded in a different way. No, we didn't increase the tax rate, but the property value caused an increase. So how, at some point, this camel's back's gonna break?
No, I agree with you, but at the same
Question,
time.
one more question.
Where does it stop is my question.
Did,
How do we
did you get a
stop
pay
it?
raise this year?
Did I?
Yeah.
No,
So you're gonna be less money at your household?
exactly.
Me too.
Same here.
I can't increase my revenue at the shop because I'm controlled by insurance.
Yeah.
So I can't say, well, taxes went up, I'll just go up on my labor rate. I can't do it.
So let me ask you this.
Somewhere it's got to slow down.
So there's a principle, and I'm talking about federal government now. So the principle is if you decrease the tax rate, tax revenues will go up, right? So is that considered a tax increase or a tax decrease?
Well, you lost me.
You lost me.
If you
Well,
decrease the rate,
the
revenue
big
will-
debate in presidential elections and stuff like that, they all come in, the Republicans say, every time we've decreased the tax rate, revenues to the federal government have gone up because of what it does is it spurs economic growth. And because of that economic growth, the actual dollars coming into the federal government goes up, even though the rate went down. So is that a tax increase or a tax decrease?
It's a tax decrease, which produced more revenue, but that's.
So if we
not-
leave
that's
it
not
the same
applicable
and it
here.
generates more revenue, that's not a tax increase. That's my point.
But it is more money out of people's pockets.
It is
Yours,
more
mine,
money out
everybody
of
else's.
everybody's
Yeah,
pocket.
that's
That's true. I agree with
I
that.
do feel there's a.
So how can we help the
But
public?
the problem is if we decrease the tax rate just to bring our revenues down, then they're still gonna be paying more for the city and the county. So it's gonna be more dollars coming out of their pocket, yet we can't afford to give them a raise to pay for that increase. We can't increase their wage with inflation because our budget is staying exactly the same, right?
We have no control at all over what the city and the county do.
No, I know
All
that.
we can control
I absolutely
is
understand that, but
what
what
happens
my
here.
point is, we can't give the teachers a raise if we decrease the tax rate, right? So they're gonna be making less.
We give them a raise? Is there a raise in this budget?
We gave them a raise last year, 3.5.
What about this year?
3%.
2%.
How about this year?
2%. 2% on midpoint.
2 to 3%.
So-
Depends on where they go.
So if we do what y'all are saying, we're not gonna be able to do that anymore.
For every 1%, it's $200,000 district-wide. For every 1% raise.
I'll tell you what, this puts us clear rock in a hard spot.
It
Well,
does.
if I can make.
Listen, I agree with y'all's principle. I'm not arguing with that.
If I can make.
I'm
a
just
point.
arguing with saying that I don't think we're doing a tax, that we're not increasing the taxes.
We're not increasing the taxes, we're increasing the tax burden.
Well,
But
We're
it's
not.
But it's not coming from us,
No.
but it is, we are to a certain extent in control of it.
No.
We don't have to do that.
this is bigger than Gatesville, guys. And I need.
I was gonna ask the state level, can you address that, please?
I really want to address that. This is bigger than Gatesville. You know, this is mandated tax increases at the state level, specifically by a lieutenant governor, who is telling the various entities, you have to increase tax burden in order to increase revenue for the state. And that's happening at the state level, 17% over the last 3 years.
Well, can
So
I
you're
ask-
saying they're dictating to
Absolutely.
the adjuster
Absolutely.
to raise the property
Absolutely.
values?
And then if we don't increase, if our budget doesn't go up, help me with this because I struggle with this concept. There's an offset from the state, correct? If we raise, they're gonna lower the amount of money coming to us. Am
That
I
is correct.
reading that correct?
Absolutely.
At what ratio?
Um,
Are we charging the bare minimum we can charge to get the maximum out of the state? Or are we charging over and above that?
No, we're not the bare minimum. Bare minimum is
You can,
104. I think
we
it's
can
104.
charge, we can like add 5 cents to the M&O rates, and that would bring in approximately 700,000 additional income.
You were asking,
Split
could we?
50-50.
Well, that's not what I'm asking. Or to get the maximum revenue from
From
the
the state.
state and the federal government, are we charging the bare minimum tax rate that we can
But the
charge?
federal government's not involved in this.
Okay, state government, okay.
State government, yeah. So you can go up some pennies on the
I
M&O.
ain't talking about going up.
He's saying
No,
that
you're asking
we
me
lower it.
if we're doing the maximum from the
No.
state.
Correct.
How are we
If
doing
we,
this
if we
get
lower,
to
if
get
we
the
lower,
maximum income from
what
the
is our
state?
tax rate, 1.17?
It's 117.
If we lower it to 116.5, what does that do to state funds? Is my question. Is it, are we gonna lose
You
state
gotta- I
funds?
think you've got to pull out just the M&O. So we're at 104.
We got M&O and got INS, two
The
different
rest is
taxes.
set, because that's paid
Okay.
debt. That has to be.
Right.
M&O is $1.04, been $1.04 forever, ever
Okay.
since 19.
So what happens to the state funds if we lower it to 103.5 or 103 or 102, whatever the number?
Mhm.
How does that affect the money we get from the state?
So will they give us more money, I think is his question, to offset.
There's a minimum that we have to have.
That's my question. What is that
There's a
minimum?
minimum,
What is
minimum
that
tax. You can't just like completely lower your taxes and expect them to pay the difference.
Well, and
But
there's
at
still,
what point
what I
does
was
it
getting
affect
at-
what we get from the state is my question. How much does it affect what's coming in from, the state gives us this amount of money and we get this amount of money from local taxes.
Mhm.
If we lower this, what happens over here? Do we get less from the state? Do we get more? Does it stay the same?
You might get a little more, but I don't think it's gonna be penalized. You're gonna be penalized for lowering your taxes. We're already so low.
Yeah.
well, can I throw another monkey wrench in the works?
Okay?
We all pay taxes to the state also. It's coming out of your pocket locally, or it's coming out of your pocket to Austin. And I know the direct hit isn't the same, I understand that. But it's not magic money falling from the sky.
Oh, I know it.
It's every one of us that works is paying into it.
And there's minimal 2 years lag time, Rob. So say we were to adjust and our property taxes increase, like you said, there's not an automatic correlation between that fiscal year. So it takes 2 years to even catch up, or the state to even make up any type of adjustment. So whenever we had a tax levy increase 2 years ago, the biggest one we had, when it was, I guess it was 2 years ago, was the
But
big
that's
adjustment.
as a result of the
Increase at the state
property
level.
values. So if you have increased revenues on the tax levy as a result of the property values, then basically dollar for dollar, you're gonna lose. The state's just gonna reduce their amount by the amount you're getting from the local taxes.
And that's the driver.
That's the
At
driver.
the state level, that's what they're doing.
Now, the tax rate itself, $1.04, I don't know if we can go any much lower than $1.04. That's pretty low. That's about as low as they have. But I do know that the average in Region 12 is $1.09. So the average M&O rate in Region 12 is 5 cents more than what we're charged. We're at $1.04. If we added that 5 cents and went to $1.09 like all the districts in this region, that additional revenue would be about $700,000, split between additional income from the state, giving us, a benefit for raising taxes, and then plus you'd have the increased tax levy as well.
But we're not talking about
Hmm?
Well, between the tax rate for the city and the county and the raise of the appraisals on the property value, it's gonna hurt the taxpayer. It's gonna be tough to deal with.
No question about it.
And I'm not advocating for anything else, I'm just stating my point that
The bottom
I
line-
told the people that elected me to this office that I would come up here and do my best to keep the taxes from going up. The dollars spent on taxes, and that's what I'm trying to do. Because if I tell you something, you can write it in stone.
So
To
the
the best
bottom
of my
line
ability.
is the appraisal district is the one that's, I'm gonna use the words, making us look like this.
Well,
We don't have no
it's more, it's
control
not
over
just
that.
them.
Well, and they're gonna, I've had a long conversation with them, the state makes them do it.
Yeah,
Right.
the state controller's
So
office.
follow, Lieutenant Governor has the first 4 bills on the Senate side. And the first 3 of those for last session were directly related to property taxes in some sort, either at the city level or at the state level. And so there is a very specific agenda at this point to put more of a burden on your local tax entities to cover the bills at the state level. So that's what you have to look at. That's where the real story is. the Gatesville, the Oglesbys, some of those worlds out there are paying a pretty big burden at the state level. But so are the Dallas ISDs or the Austin ISDs, where they're at $1.57 or $1.58 per, and they're getting just as much of that 10% max that we have to pay, maximum that we can pay in increased taxes. Mine was 9.5 or something like that. Rob's, we live next door to each other. I'm sure yours was the same. And so I feel it just as much as everybody else, but I also feel there's a quality of education that comes along, with our taxes. Now, I've never protested my taxes at all.
I understand that. You're in a different position than I am.
Yeah, but I've never protested them.
I have.
For
Well,
that reason.
The one thing is if we would've went straight into this and voted tonight, there would've been no discussion. This is a good discussion, because it answers a lot of questions to the public,
Sure.
if she's writing things down.
Well, it's on,
Yeah.
Millions of people are tired.
Millions of
So the bottom line is if we hadn't questioned anything, there would've been no discussion, it would've went to vote, and there has been some answers come out of this.
Yeah.
So, discussion is always good.
Always good, and we've never shied away from that. I think there's a bigger picture out there at the state level that is hurting every citizen in Texas, and I'll leave it at that. And John and I have had this conversation.
Yes, we have.
now technically, it is the state comptroller's office that sets the final property values. They do an audit, and so they're gonna come back behind our assessor's office and all the other assessor's offices throughout the state of Texas, and then they do their own audit. And so then they come up with a final number, and that's what eventually gets to TEA for the calculations. So, like I said, if you have some renegade assessor's office trying to go up too much or hold the properties way down, they'll get in trouble with the state comptroller's office. And they might lose their job too.
Well, we've had
If they
several
get
local districts.
Too much of a variance.
Yeah, we've had several local districts that either had it too high or too low, that they were told by their comptrollers, you have to increase it.
We used to fight this battle here when I was on the board before. We fought this battle because the taxes were out of whack.
Well, it was the values, the property values, right?
Property values, yes.
Yeah, not the taxes, the property
Not the
values.
taxes, property values. Taxes are the end result.
Right.
Yeah, so the politicians run out and say,
When they came in here
I'm
and
gonna-
got on to us.
I'm gonna reduce the tax rate, and then they jack your property values up.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Sure.
you end up, yeah.
Back to the
It's
discussion
all-
of passing
in
it
the end,
off
it's
to
all the
local
same money.
entities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I wasn't trying to spark a debate, I was just trying to
No.
state my position, and that's,
Yeah.
Glad you did.
So
Okay.
there's a chart that I presented to y'all on the vital signs at last month's meeting. And it's a certified 2018 property values. And it kind of shows you the growth. There's a green line, which is freeze adjusted, and the yellow line is frozen values. So you see that the yellow line keeps growing. So there's the frozen values keeps growing as well. There's a lot of people in the frozen values. The disabled vets, 65. There's a lot of categories where people's taxes are actually frozen. And when a typical person turns 65, their taxes are frozen on their house, as long as they live there and own their home.
the tax rate or
But
the
they're-
appraisal value, the tax
No, the
rate.
tax- No, the
Appraisal
tax.
value. Isn't it the appraisal?
Yeah,
value?
the tax itself.
Appraisal's
So,
not, the value.
no, the appraisal too. I mean, it's gonna affect the appraisal.
Yeah.
Oh,
The
yeah.
tax rate is frozen? It
No,
can't
the
tax
tax
dollars.
amount.
The tax dollars.
The tax
amount.
dollars.
So if they paid $500 last year, they're gonna pay $500 from
That's
now on,
not,
once you turn
that's
60.
not what one older man told me, that the property values affects it. He explained it to me, because I told him, I said, man, you got it made, yours are pros. He said, not really. So I'd love to know the true answer.
Well, I own a home in Frisco.
If we can
I'm
get a
65
politician to
years old.
answer that, then probably.
My house has been
good.
frozen for several years. And it's the same tax. It's hard to believe, but and up in that area, property values are going up 20%.
Hmm.
And of course, they're screaming. And of course, then the local school district is also at the max, way up there, $1.55, $1.60. You know, so that's what you're experiencing up there in the Metroplex. But it's true, the taxes are frozen. Now, it's not all the taxes, it's just the school district. So it's not gonna affect the county, it's not gonna affect the city, it's just the school district. So all the other taxes are not frozen on my home. But I can pull out my taxes thing, I can show you. Cause I'm happy.
Darrell, are we operating, and I don't really know how to ask this question, and
Okay.
I know every question I ask is so negative, and I hate that, but it's the way my mind, are we operating absolutely 100% efficiency as much as we can? There's no way we can operate any more efficient than what we're doing.
Well, you make me a liar and say we couldn't. I mean, we can always be more efficient. We can lower wages, we can work them.
Well, that's not
we can
necessarily
work 'em
more efficient
harder.
because you're not gonna retain teachers if you start cutting wages.
Well, I'm
And then
on
we're-
my way efficiency, like in the cafeteria program, you know, we can lay off a couple people in the cafeteria and we won't lose so much, it'll be more efficient. You know, will we keep them? I don't know,
Can we operate with less people,
you know.
in your opinion? I mean,
Well,
let me change the
it's-
question.
Yeah, you'd have to take a very detailed look at everything. Like you have to take a look at class sizes, for instance, because most of our expenses in the instruction area anyway. So look at class sizes. You know, do you have a teacher that only has 40 students? Whereas some other teachers have 200 students? Is that efficient? These are things that Mr. Penrod and his team look at every year. And I know they look at those numbers, the class size numbers.
Yeah, class size has always been an important issue.
Always very important. That's where a lot of your efficiency can come in.
So to answer your question from just the teaching and administration side of things, I think there's a couple things that impact that. If you increased class size, I'm just giving a blanket statement, okay? But if you increase the class size by 1 to 2 kids per class, then you could probably save 2 to 3 positions. If you didn't have one grade level on one campus, you would become a lot more efficient. So are there ways to become more efficient? Absolutely. Because you're saving administration costs, you're saving other costs at the same time. So you have to weigh the checks and balances of, do we want to increase class size by 1 to 2 people, students, and let the attrition fork teachers go. Look at how do you combine a campus that at the primary campus, how do you combine those campuses to make them more efficient? You know, so if you're asking the true essence of is it efficient or not, I think you can always become more efficient, but there's always going to be where do you have an unintended consequence, and then where do you have a net loss from morale and from teachers leaving because they do appreciate smaller class sizes.
Well, and from my perspective, I would always rather try to operate more efficiently than increase the tax burden. I mean, and I'm not talking about getting rid of teachers, and I'm not talking about piling a bunch of kids in a class, but we need to be operating as efficiently as we can.
Yeah.
And I know we got a huge fund balance, we're fixing to spend a bunch of it, but you know, y'all look at that money different from the way I look at it. That it is the school's money, but it's the school's money that was taken from the public through taxation, and you know, we have to be good stewards of it. Not that we haven't been,
I agree.
but I just think in
You know, to have an $18.5 million fund balance is something that I've talked about since I've gotten here. On we're not a savings account. You know, we're not a savings account for the community. So to have that much in fund balance, I think it's our duty when you're looking at building a renovation at the high school that's going to cost $12.5 million. It would be an absolute failure if you try to go out for a bond just so you have money in there. So I hear you, and I'm on the same page as you on that. Absolutely on the same page. So I don't think a surplus of 10 months, 11 months fund balance should ever be achieved for a school district, because you should be operating efficiently. That's just my own personal belief. I wasn't here, you know, prior to this, but I know when you're looking at construction and really it comes down to are you upkeeping the buildings on a yearly basis? And because if you were, we probably, truth be told, if you spent that money over the last 10 to 15 to 20 years to renovate and truly systemically ensure that your facilities are kept to the utmost and updating them as you go with HVAC and everything else that goes along with that, LED lights and efficiency, then we wouldn't have the fund balance that we've had. But because we haven't done that, we've gotten to a point where we put ourselves in a hole. Now we're having to spend $12.5 million. But if we don't spend $12.5 million now, we're gonna have to spend 40 to 50 million on a high school in a few years from now because of the stage of the high school. So I think maintenance and operation, upkeep is essential as you're looking at that.
And I agree on the fund balance, but I'll also say I'm glad we have it now because we can do the high school and not ask the public to pay for it with a higher tax rate. We don't have to go out and get a bond. So I understand we're not a savings account, and I agree with that, but at the same time, there are gonna be projects that come up where we're gonna need a few $1 million. And so if we're not setting money aside as we go for those big projects, we're not gonna have the money to do those big projects. So
it's balanced.
there's a balance, there's a give and take there.
You said the other night how long it would take us to recover that fund balance back. What was it?
I don't think I said that.
You made a statement about it.
Well, what did I say?
If I knew,
I don't recall giving you a prediction.
You gave something
I don't
like,
know how many years it's gonna take
yeah,
to
at
build
a
it back
certain
up.
rate to get that
You know,
balance
if
back.
we were able to put 2 million back in, like we had been for a while, you know, then you're looking at seven years.
Is there
That's what I
is
couldn't
there
remember.
$2 million in this budget that is planned on going back into the general fund
No.
or the fund balance?
Well, you don't
We're not-
count it as revenue. So you have it in the account, you pull it out as you use it. So
But how's the money get back in there, I guess is my question.
Well, we
Unused
were
funding.
budgeting.
And so in 17, 18, how much money is going back into the fund balance?
We don't know that
For
yet.
this fiscal year,
The one the budget we just,
Uh,
last year's budget we just
I hope
approved.
there's something going back in there, I'll tell you that. I won't know till October,
After we
but,
get through all that.
and I'm predicting perhaps a loss for 17, 18.
See that, I mean,
But you know, our budgets have been much tighter lately than they have been before. I
But
mean,
it-
we
but it's
used
a
to
in the
budget.
past year,
but it's a
in
loss.
past years with, you know, with prior administration, we would budget tons of open positions. One, like a teacher or two for each campus. And we had, every single department had open positions all over the budget.
Up to
So
9 to 10
it was, the
positions.
budget was way inflated going into it, knowing that it was probably 2 million over.
And that's how the fund balance came about.
And that's how the fund balance came about.
Okay.
Now,
But we don't have that
Let me
luxury
ask you this,
anymore.
we're gonna have a loss, but that's because of the capital improvements we've made, correct?
Well, you know, you have a variety of things. You've got additional expenditures, additional personnel. You've had the capital expenditures. You've had a drop in enrollment for the past couple of years, which has taken a pretty good hit on the revenue side. You add all that together, and we're operating on a tight budget.
And you also have to look at 3 years ago when we decided, and we went back and looked at the last 15 to 20 years on how and often and how much teachers received raises, or received raises across the board. And there was, I forget the amount, Daryl, I'm not gonna know it off the top of my head, but it was less than, on one hand, over the last 15 years, where there were dollar amounts actually assigned to raises. And so when we took a 6% raise 3 years ago and spread it out over 3 years, that's $1.2 million additional money into a budget, no matter how you cut it. So that 1.2 million has to come from the other piece of the pie. So when he's talking about becoming leaner, that's where some of the leanness is coming from. We don't have the luxury of putting 10 positions and fluffing 10 positions into a budget. And you're talking about working off efficiency. You're not working off efficiency if you have 10 positions extra in your budget. And so we are pretty efficient now. And we have also at the same time given the biggest raises we've ever given to a teacher. They hadn't received that much of a raise in years upon years upon years.
Well, and in all reality, it's what it's gonna take to keep teachers.
Absolutely.
You know, I don't know what the answer is. We're gonna have to find one, but, you know,
It goes back to efficiency. Your answer is efficiency. And that's the only way you can, when you're looking at the percentage of dollars that it takes to your personnel, there's really no other way to increase the bottom line dollar amount or decrease the bottom line dollar amount besides efficiency within your personnel. That's it. You can't really do it through programs. You can't do it through excluding a playoff account, you know, that $50,000. Those don't add up to what it takes when you look at personnel. So we've made a commitment to try to be more competitive with salaries. That's what the board decided, and we decided 3 years ago, or 2 years ago, now going on 3 years with 6%. And that's a direct correlation to what we heard from the teachers, that they hadn't had a raise in years. And I say it hadn't had a raise, it may have been a $100 raise or $200 raise.
that the insurance ate up.
Yeah, absolutely. It wasn't
I hear it.
significant.
Every day.
Yeah, lots of veteran teachers were bringing home
Less money.
less
money
each
every
year
year.
because of the insurance, absolutely.
Well, and we also raised it from 25 years to 30 years.
Mhm.
We
And
moved
it
the cap
stays.
from, we used to cap it at 25 years, and so we would lose teachers the last after 25 years, and they know they were gonna be stagnant. So we've increased that now to 30 years, and in order to keep those veteran teachers.
So whatever you say here is gonna step on somebody's toes, I know. But you talked about increasing sizes of classes and cutting out teachers. That's what I call down at the bottom. Sometimes you gotta skim the cream off the top.
Well, I said administration.
That may be where some of the more expensive expense is, and I'm not
No, I said.
pointing,
across the
I'm
board
just saying that
efficiency.
maybe sometimes businesses get a little top heavy.
Yeah.
Well, and that's what I was fixing to bring up is just the numbers from 2015 through 2018, and I was very vocal about this when I was running for the board. In 2015, our function 21 was $61,822. For next year, it's $200,000, $268,000, but for 2018, it was $175,000. Function 23 went from 1.18 million, and last year it was down as it was what, $400,000, 1.53. 41 went from 530,000 to $1,040,000. I mean, good bit of money. It's $974,000 between those three codes each and every year. That's not a one-time expense. That's every year.
Of course, you know, you started with function 21. You can't just blanket stuff. You need to help me zero in on one thing at a time. I can't just answer a bunch of stuff at one time. So if I'm gonna zero in on 21,
Okay.
you said it went up it's 268 versus,
Excuse me.
It went up from, in 2015 under Mr. Spirit was 61,822.
okay.
That's
So
what's
what's
published on the
happened to
website
21?
now.
What's happened to 21?
21?
Yeah, function 21.
I'm not sure.
Well, we brought on a whole special ed department that used to be at the co-op.
Okay.
Remember that, guys?
Yeah.
You've already forgotten about that? It's only been a year. That happened last summer.
Right, before I
Well,
got
that-
here.
21.
But I do remember that.
21, yeah.
Right, right.
What about the switch over in the position to have a full-time K director now? That's the other part, 21. Those two things right there is the reason for 21,
Okay.
all right? So the CAPE, was that an option? Well, I don't know, they've improved the CAPE program so much.
But we got so many grants that are paying for a big percentage of that, is that not right?
Well, a
Absolutely not.
lot more of our revenues from the state are now earmarked to CATE.
There's no grants.
See,
We
because
have
the case-
Perkins grant, which hovers
No.
around 40,000. It's a small.
Well, for state aid, not necessarily a grant,
Oh
but
yeah,
state
you
money.
increase CTE efficiency.
Because of what?
Yeah, because of WADA, which is weighted attendance. You increase.
Weighted daily attendance.
You increase that, then you increase revenue based on CTE and seat time and CTE courses. And I'm proud, guys, to have CTE courses that are
Oh,
building
absolutely.
trades.
I thought when we talked about all that last year, that stuff was almost self-supportive. It actually,
It is self-supported.
so that, I mean, I don't understand why that adds to
Because you
it.
still have to
Well,
add,
I mean,
it's still a dollar
it
amount.
goes
But when you're comparing function 21
Okay.
from 2015, I see what you're saying. There's things added in 2016, there's things added that come out of that fund.
Right?
I'm just wondering if maybe, that's what we need to slow down. I don't know, but
Well, I mean, you've got a sped department, it's probably operating more efficient now than what it was before, when we had the co-op. And what you looking at as far as overall? And y'all received the audit report from TASB, and I think it was a good report that our sped department received, even after just 1 year of operation on our own, independent. So, I don't see an issue there as far as how we're handling the sped department. I think we're doing a great job on the sped. And I think in the CAPE, I think we're doing a wonderful job in the CAPE. These programs are offering so much more than what we used to offer. And we have a lot more pathways than we ever had before.
right.
And so now that we have more students taking more of these CAPE classes, the state says, okay, so the revenue we're giving you, so much of it now is gonna have to go to support your CAPE programs.
Mhm.
All right, so they're actually taking it out of regular education and assigning it over here to CAPE. So it's forcing you to put more money into the CAPE program.
But they're not
So
actually
you're
ponying up
actually-
any more money, they're just forcing you to take it out of your budget.
You're
your
generating
general-
more money.
They didn't give you any more.
You're
Well, a little
generating
bit of
more
money.
money.
You get a little bit of money.
Because of kids.
Yeah.
Numbers.
Was it a 10%?
17,
Factor.
33, 66, and 99.
There's a little heavier factor for the K classes. But by and large, it's taking money from the revenue side from the regular ed and moving over to CAPE. So they're trying to say, you got all these people taking CAPE classes, that means you need more money in the CAPE program. So they want to make sure that you're spending that money for the CAPE programs.
So, as a district, you have to look at what are you producing, right? So what kind of graduate are you producing? And I think this community, what we've heard is this community really wants to support CTE and the K programs that we offer, from health science technology to criminal justice to all the other 9, so we have 11 total. Welding, auto mechanics, building trades, agriculture, all of those. Those are important. And I am extremely proud of the growth in the facilities that our CTE programs. Some of the best
Huge
around.
strides. I mean,
Some of the best around.
Yeah, had a welding team that went to the national championship.
Absolutely.
Good Lord, that's fabulous.
Absolutely.
But
No.
I'm just looking for resolution. I mean, it's got to slow down, or it just it has to. And I don't want to run up to the edge of the bluff before we try to put the brakes on. That's my point, and I'm gonna be finished.
One final thing on Kate, and in my mind, there's a 3-headed benefit. Number one, it's good for the kids that are in there and get the experience and the training or the certification that they need. Number 2, it's good for the bottom line for us. I mean, that WADA is kicking in more money, not all of which goes into Kate.
Right.
Some of it is going into general fund that we can use for other purposes. And number 3, if you want to look at it from an accountability standpoint, there's that CCMR factor under domain 1, and it's contributing greatly to our success right there also. So, I know that's not budget driven, but it ties back to budget, and so does the student
Well,
accountability.
every dollar should be tied to student outcomes.
Yeah, exactly.
Every dollar should be tied to student outcomes.
What was the financial effect of all the kids we lost to Jonesboro? Or there's kids that we lost. You mentioned a while ago that I think I heard you say that there was an effect on the number of kids we lost, our enrollment. Was that correct?
Enrollment was down.
Yeah.
Enrollment was down.
Yeah, exactly. I would estimate it between 600,000 to 800,000.
So my
Revenue loss.
question about that is so there is a loss, but back during our last year's election, that was a topic. And I was told it was a washout, that we had enough kids come in that it didn't matter.
Well, all those, even, so yesterday's paper had.
I didn't read it.
Which it said 20 years ago. 20 years ago, you know how they always have what happened when, had 20 years, 25, 30, whatever it was. Number 20 was covering the board meeting, and it talked about James Bay's, how he was talking through the first day enrollment being down 50-something kids. What was it, Kate?
I can't remember exactly.
But it was 50-something kids, and now he was struggling with being down 50-something kids from first day prior. We're up over 60 kids from last year, first day prior. So, you know, it's not just a last year thing. We're talking about things 20 years ago.
It's cyclical.
It's cyclical.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
By demographics, those kids that were up, or those kids that are coming back from,
some,
Two of more.
yeah.
do you have any idea how many?
We can pull, again, that's hard. We can pull the data, but we've had several kids come back. And so I can break that down.
Got a couple of teachers from that.
And we've had several teachers come back as well.
As of today, we're within 20 student enrollment of our projected
Yeah.
for this next fiscal year.
So
And
it's cyclical.
It's been growing every day. So
That's good.
I would anticipate us being very close to the projected enrollment that this budget is based upon pretty soon.
So it happens, guys. It's cyclical. You know, when it's 20 years in the paper, it was just coincidental that I saw it in yesterday's paper that we were down that many.
A lot of the kids that left for reasons.
Sure they did.
You know, definite reasons. They made them known to me. You know, they may not make them known to everybody, but I've talked to a lot of people, and you know,
I'm
Good or
sure they
bad.
left for reasons 20 years ago too.
yeah.
You know? But enough about last year's election.
Yeah, let's get on time. So we-
I just picked up on that number and it triggered something in my brain. I wanted to hear some facts on it.
Well, the target revenue for last year, didn't you tell me was 7,900 or something like that?
Somewhere in that range. 7,300, I think is.
72 this year?
73, yeah.
Or you don't
7,300.
you don't know? You know what it is?
Yeah, yeah.
What is it?
I think it's around 7,300.
73. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
You
you know,
lose a kid,
times
you lose
150
7,300.
kids. That's $1 million. Okay.
So on the efficiency, I think there was a strategic committee group that was focused on efficiency. And that group, I suppose, is still alive, right?
Oh yeah. We presented out. We had a 1-year update.
Yeah. I mean, you know, you can bang your heads together and come up with all kinds of ideas on how to become more efficient. One board member who's no longer with us suggested maybe consolidating all the cafeterias into one and delivering the food to the other campuses. Some school districts do that. Possibly could affect, you know, the efficiency. Do you want to outsource anything? We're outsourcing our our food service to Sodexo. What about our maintenance department? What about our transportation department? What about our custodial? There are companies that will come in here and bid on outsourcing those services. Do we want to look at that to see if that would provide us any efficiencies? You know, so once you start scratching your brain and trying to come up with ideas, there's all kinds of
Is that a common
things that
thing
you can
anywhere?
explore.
How much of that kind of stuff is outsourced at other places?
Usually it's your larger districts. Especially transportation. There's a lot of transportation that's outsourced.
I mean, Sodexo, they're in the business for maintenance and custodial. They offer services in addition to their food service. So, you know, maybe this group needs to.
If that's what the board wants us to
Yeah.
do, start looking at outsourcing those. That's the board's decision. We'll
Well,
look at
something's
it.
down the road that we may look at, but I'm just,
And then, you know, like I say, the class sizes is a biggie because that's a lot of money in the education program. But I know Eric and his group, his team look at those numbers carefully.
You know,
Might it be a little tighter?
I
Maybe.
think classroom size, if we're talking about maybe wanting to hire some aides to help the teachers out, if we make the class sizes bigger, how much more of a problem are we gonna have helping the teachers out?
I don't think that's the answer.
Yeah,
No, I don't
think
either.
that's the answer either.
You know,
Because,
that's why we haven't increased the
Yeah.
class sizes.
But this is all stuff you look
Because
at when
it's
you're
something that's
looking at
important to the community.
yeah,
And-
we gotta
and
keep
respect
that number
that.
down where a teacher can teach.
Yeah, now I'll say this, as you look at remodeling the high school, you know, there's several of those classrooms that are really, really tiny. There's 2 wings that are below what the state has as set as a minimum right now. They're right at 500 square feet. whereas the state has 700 square feet as
The
a
existing
minimum.
ones you're
Current
talking
ones.
about, yeah.
So you can only fit 15 in some of those classrooms. As you build a normal sized classroom, you're naturally going to be able to fit 20 to 22 without smelling too bad. So
Do you think the utility bill will be affected?
absolutely.
With that? It should drop.
Absolutely.
Because
Our most
everything is
efficient.
more efficient now.
Yep. Our elementary is
That's gonna
very
be a,
efficient.
that's gonna be a good comeback on that high school deal.
Yeah, and you change out all the lights, all of those at the same time, it's gonna be a very efficient building. You can just close everything off.
Yeah. Insulation, electricity, heating and cooling. That's where your money goes.
Okay. Do we have a motion to, no, we're in the discussion
Item
part.
seven,
We already have the motion.
motion and a second.
I think that's the longest discussion and a discussion time we've ever had. We normally do that before, but that's fine, it's good,
It was
I'm not
a good
complaining,
one.
yeah.
It was a good one.
So,
I think.
all in favor of adopting the 18-19 budget, raise your hand. Okay, we got 3, any opposed? Okay, we don't ask for abstains, so we have 1 who abstained.
Insurance thing.
Yeah,
So,
it was 3 to 1, so it passes. Okay, adoption of the 2018 maintenance and operation tax rate.
Flip over to page 32.
I want to read it.
I think, okay, so we're adopting the M&O and then we'll do the INS. So management recommends that we maintain our M&O tax rate at $1.04, where it's been at least since 2005. So that's our recommendation.
Okay, you have the recommendation of $1.04. Do we have a motion for that? Or is there any discussion? Anybody want to say anything other than what's already been said? Okay, do we have a motion to adopt $1.04 tax rate for the 18-19?
I'll make that motion.
Cheyenne, would you like to second? Thank you, guys.
you're welcome.
Any other discussion? All those in favor, raise your hand. Any opposed? Okay. All right, motion passes. The interest and sinking tax rate.
Okay, so the interest sinking rate went up about a nickel when we built the elementary school and added those 2 bonds. And it's taking about 13.7 cents to service the debt on those 2 bonds. And so we recommend maintaining, and that rate has been in effect since the bonds were issued. So we recommend, management does, that we maintain the INS rate at 13.7 for next year.
Okay, do we have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, second? Cheyenne? Any more discussion? All in favor? Raise your hand. Any opposed? Interest and sinking rate is set. Now it's signed. I get to read. Okay, I guess by law we're required to read this.
Yes, sir.
So, ordinance number 42 of set tax rate. Whereas the Board of Trustees of Gatesville Independent School District must establish the tax rates to be levied on taxable property within the Gatesville Independent School District, which is to be recorded on the Corio County tax rolls. Whereas the Board of Trustees has approved and adopted the tax rolls of the Gatesville Independent School District, and the total valuation of all taxable property rendered for taxation for the year 2018 is $793,350,833. Whereas the Board of Trustees has adopted the budget for the 2018-2019 school year, and it is now necessary to establish the 2018 tax rate in support of the 2019 fiscal year budget. Whereas the Board of Trustees has approved keeping the same property tax rate as last year by adopting a tax rate of $1.17.7. Now therefore be it ordained by the Board of Trustees of the Gatesville Independent School District, Gatesville, Texas, Section 1, total tax rate. The total tax rate aggregating $1.17.7 shall be levied on each $100 valuation of all taxable property located in Gatesville Independent School District and appearing on the assessment roll for the year 2018 in accordance with the Constitution and laws of the state of Texas. This tax rate represents an effective rate increase of 2.24% and will raise 4.21% more taxes for the maintenance and operations than last year's tax rate. Section 2, allocation of tax rate. $1.04 of the total rate is specifically levied for current maintenance and operation expenses, and 13.7 cents of the total rate is specifically levied for the payment of the principal and interest on debt. This tax rate will increase taxes for maintenance and operations on a $100,000 home by approximately $54.17. Section 3, levy. There is hereby levied and shall be collected from every person, firm, and corporation pursuing an occupation in Gatesville Independent School District, which is taxable by law, the full amount of taxes permitted by the laws of the state of Texas. Such taxes are to be assessed and collected by the Corio County Tax Assessor Collector. Section 4, severability. If any portion of the ordinance or the application of same to any person or set of circumstances is for any reason held to be unconstitutional, void, or invalid, or for any reason unenforceable, the validity of the remaining portions of the ordinance or the application of other persons or sets of circumstances shall not be affected. It being the intent of the Board of Trustees of Gatesville Independent School District, Gatesville, Texas, in adopting this ordinance, that no portion contained in it shall become inoperative or fail by reasons of any unconstitutionality or invalidity of any other portion. Section 5, effective date. This ordinance shall become effective upon adoption. Adopted by the Board of Trustees of Gatesville Independent School District at a meeting on August 30th, 2018, at which a quorum was present and for which due notice was given pursuant to Texas Government Code 551.001 and Texas Education Code 44.004. That's it. Okay. Fund balance resolution for August.
We need a
We
motion
need to
to
approve
adopt
this.
that,
Oh.
please.
We have to adopt that too.
Yes, sir.
We have a motion to adopt what I just read.
Yes, sir.
Second is David. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay.
Rob,
It
did
passes.
you abstain? Did you abstain?
Fund balance resolution. Is that where
Okay.
we're at now?
Yes.
Okay.
You ready for that one? All right, so what we're doing here is we will have an August 31, 2018 fund balance. The exact amount will be determined once the audit is complete. We don't know exactly how much that's going to be, so we kind of estimate. So what we have typically done each year is through board resolutions to designate portions of that fund balance for various purposes. So it minimizes our general fund balance, to a lesser amount. More school districts are going that route, designating a lot of their fund balance for specific areas. So here's the designated areas for this year. The first one there has to do with setting aside 25% of residential placement requirement on the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act Part B. So this has to do with our special ed. We did this first last year for the August 31, 2017, and we want to go ahead and do the same. This not necessarily means we're going to spend this money, but it means we have this much in reserve out of fund balance because we didn't actually budget for that.
Yeah, so
I mean, the money's available if you need it.
yeah, so
Yeah.
if we're required to place a kid in a residential facility, then we have money set aside through this. It's rare, but it can happen.
The second one is the commitment of $12.5 million of fund balance for the planned renovation of the high school campus. The next one is something we put in there every year, $2 million committed to offsetting potential fluctuations in future state funding. There have been fluctuations in that amount for this school district coming from the state, and it typically involves the delay of the August payment, which if they run into trouble, that's what they do. You lose your August payment. For instance, in our case, it's about $2 million. So that fiscal year, you'd lose $2 million. So we go ahead and commit $2 million for that purpose. And as far as the capital assignment for capital acquisitions, that has in years past been around $2 million. Now we're doing so much up in the high school renovation, 12.5. We're proposing that we only have $500,000 assigned for major capital acquisitions and facility projects. There's a variety of things that that have been discussed already, I think with the board, like new phones, maybe a few other things that would fall into that $500,000 category. Anything major would obviously have to come back to the board for approval, but we're just assigning part of our fund balance for this purpose.
So as you're looking at the total cost of this is not equal the total amount of fund balance that we currently have, right? So if you rough math, 18 and a half or so, 19, and this is equal to, how did she raise it? What is this equal, 13?
15.
Yeah, so there's still some unassigned fund balance that would be remaining. And the district frowns upon having too large of a general fund balance, and that's why you earmark.
On the 12.5 million for the high school, we're just setting that amount aside because we're talking about 10.5 to 11 million for the project. I didn't know if they've come back and said, hey, we think it's going to be.
No, this is safeguarding that piece, and you also have to remember it's going to be over probably a 3-year period that's going to be there, so that will not be touched in terms of totality.
What is the current number of our fund balance?
17, around 17.
And we're allocating 15,
15.
allocating the potential expenditures of 15 of it. That doesn't, but I mean, we're not going to spend all of
No.
that. It's just,
No, it would have to come to you, you think over $50,000 anyway.
and we need to keep how much in there?
Minimum 2.5.
7.5?
Yeah, 2.5 months, which is about 7.5 million.
And I didn't catch this, I caught one thing going through, but on that last item you were just reading, there's a statement which says does not exceed to $1 million, but the dollar figure in parentheses is 500,000.
It's a misquote, misprint.
That should be 2 mil at
It
the
should
bottom
be
also, right?
500,000.
500,000.
500,000.
The 2 million is wrong.
The 2 million is wrong, written.
Yeah, 2 million should read 500,000.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
Which one are you talking about the same one?
Yeah,
This one here.
that last
3 lines up
paragraph.
from the bottom.
We used to have that at 2 million. Last year it was set at 2 million.
Okay.
But because of the renovation being 12.5, you're not going to have the capital outlay that you've had in the past.
Mhm.
Used to, you had $2 million there, and that's where that was at. So we just need to correct that.
Do we need to reprint it out before we vote? Or
No, we
just
could
need
vote
to-
with amended,
Okay.
Right?
Yes, but I would, I guess it's Mr. Frazier, if he wants to print a new one before
I'll print
it's
a new one
signed.
for y'all.
Yeah.
signature.
Yes,
Just
yeah,
a
yeah.
Suggestion.
Yep.
Yep.
So the $2 million in words should be the 500,000 in
500,000.
numbers. Okay.
Okay, I'll go ahead and notate it on that, so at least it's there.
Any other questions?
But I missed that one.
You got the other one.
Yeah. I stopped after I caught that.
You caught one.
Yes, I did.
Why didn't you catch the other one?
Like I said, I stopped after 12.5 got my attention.
Do we have a motion to adopt the fund balance resolution?
So moved.
Second. Any other questions, comments? All in favor, raise your hand. Any opposed? Okay, campus activity funds.
Okay, so this is another resolution dealing with our fund balance. And what this resolution is doing is assigning campus activity funds for the campus use. So we probably, I would say around 150,000 in campus activity funds at the end of the fiscal year, that each, when you total up all the campuses all together. And so what this resolution is doing is basically saying the board is going to assign this fund balance to the campuses. In other words, we're not going to go in there and dip in there and use the campus activity funds for district use. That has been done in the past, but this kind of puts a commitment on our part as a board and school district that we do not intend to utilize campus activity funds for district use.
Campus activity funds meaning fundraisers, stuff along those lines. Fundraisers, and
Each campus has their own bank account.
yeah.
And they, like the biggest one, of course, will be high school because they have so many activity accounts. Just about every sport has an activity fund. And Kay is our bookkeeper there at the high school. She maintains that fund.
But it's not good for the district to try to take that money. And that's what this does. It protects.
Keeps us from doing that.
Yeah.
One more time, just a general statement, what is this saying?
This is saying that we will not take the campus activity fund money and
Okay.
use it as a district. It's
Now,
still
if
there.
that, some of that is on the credit card statement as a reimbursable expense, that's the funds that you're talking about? You know, the
Yes.
question that I had on what is this reimbursable expense?
Yes, between us and campus activity funds.
Right, so they go over on their meal allocation, it comes out of their activity
Come
fund.
out of their activity accounts.
That's,
Right.
okay, okay, gotcha.
And this is simply saying that if there's a balance there, we're gonna roll it forward.
Yeah, we're
Rather
not
than
touching
us
it.
dipping into it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Do we have a motion to adopt this resolution? David, second?
It's getting tough when you get to eat into it.
Any more questions, comments? All in favor, raise your hand. Any opposed? Okay, motion passes.
Thank you very much, board.
Thank you, Daryl. Appreciate all the work you put in on
Thank you.
this.
You're welcome.
Okay, that's it. We're adjourned.
Thank y'all for putting up with me.
All right, so you can
Yeah, you can go get it now.
Yeah.